Hello, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's joining in from different parts of the world, and of course to our fellows as well, to another one of our global journalism seminars. We are very, very delighted and proud today to be welcoming our guest, Hamid Mir. Just a little bit of context for those who may not know. Hamid has, of course, been a journalist from Pakistan for many decades now. He's been a prolific writer in newspapers. He also transitioned into television and has a signature show that has been running on GeoTV, which we will talk about at length through the course of this conversation. Hamid's faced many crises and been a very vocal critic against authoritarian regimes. He has pushed back when journalists have been put in points of danger and has, in fact, had his own life placed at stake on a few occasions now, which I think is also something that we will chat about. The highlight for us, though, is the fact that Hamid, who has such a significant career in politics, also moved to reporting on climate change. And that happened when the devastating Pakistan floods hit that region. It wasn't something anyone saw coming in terms of its impact and really the havoc that it wreaked. Even at this point, post the worst of it being behind the country, it looks like many, many months will be spent in the water moving back. It looks like many regions, particularly the Sindh province, have been affected very badly. The last few numbers, of course, stand at nearly 500 dead in that region. 200 of them are actually children. I want to shine a light on his reportage, but more importantly, on his experiences as a journalist. But before that, and before I welcome him to this conversation, here's just a small sort of slice of all the reportage that Hamid Mir did through the course of the floods in Pakistan and the regions that he made it to, and made sure that the voices from there were heard.
आप मुझे देख रहे हैं बलूचिस्तान के इलाके लसबेला में। यहाँ पे ये एक बहुत बड़ी झील है। इस वक्त जो पाकिस्तान को सैलाब का बहुत बड़ा मसला दरपेश है, ये झील उसका एक सलूशन भी है।
कश्ती के जरिए हम आगे जाके जो मुस्तकीन है उन तक जो ना राशन फराम करेंगे। बाकी यहाँ पर जो ना गवर्नमेंट का कोई भी अमल दखल नहीं है।
हमारे शोर भी ऐसे नाकारा हैं, लेकिन क्या करें, यहाँ तो हमें शोरें बदली करके दो या तो हुकूमत को तब्दील करो या तो।
और इस फैमिली में हमें बहुत सी औरतें और बच्चे भी नजर आ रहे हैं।
अभी पानी ज्यादा हो गया, इसी वजह से अभी आस्ते आस्ते बंद निकल रहे हैं, इसी वजह।
अच्छा, पानी ज्यादा हो रहा है?
ज्यादा हो रहा है ना जी, बस ज्यादा बहुत
तो पीछे गांव में और भी लोग हैं?
ज्यादा बहुत लोग हैं उधर।
अच्छा, काफी लोग हैं?
काफी
तो उनको भी रेस्क्यू करना है अभी?
लाजिम करना है, बहुत इंतजार करते हैं अभी।
पाकिस्तान आर्मी दादू के अवाम के साथ है।
मैं हूँ हामिद मीर और आप मुझे देख रहे हैं। चारसदा का एक डूबा हुआ गांव है, बिल्कुल मोटरवे के। इस वक्त मैं नौशहरा के पुराने पुल पे खड़ा हूँ और आप ये देख रहे हैं कि बिजली का बहुत बड़ा खंभा जो है ये तबाह हो गया है। और पीछे जो आबादी है, आप मुझे देख रहे हैं मेंगोरा बाईपास पे अयूब ब्रिज के सामने। हम दरियाए सिंध में सफर कर रहे हैं और जो सखर के करीब कच्चे का इलाका है, और आप मुझे देख रहे हैं राजनपुर के इलाके फाजिलपुर में, और आप मुझे देख रहे हैं सिंध के ज़िला कंबर शहदाद कोट में। और आपको डेरा मुराद जमाली में यूनिसेफ के तरफ से एक स्कूल बनाया गया है। और आपने कब तक, कहाँ तक पढ़ना है, कौन सी क्लास तक पढ़ना है?
सर मुझे डिग्री तक पढ़ना है।
डिग्री तक पढ़ना है, शाबाश, वेरी गुड।
Voices of hope, but also voices of pain and suffering. Hamid Saab, Salaam Alaikum. Thank you very much for joining in this conversation. We really appreciate you taking the time out for it. I'm sure watching those visuals must have brought a lot of those moments back to you and have probably been made fresh. You know, as we stand now, we're looking at more than 2,000 people dead, 33 million people were displaced. As a journalist, when this began to unfold in June, could you see it coming? What were the early days looking like in the newsroom when you all began to see the devastation that was spreading across Pakistan?
Thank you very much for inviting me on this forum, and thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon and good evening to my viewers who are listening to me. This is a very important question because to be very frank, I'm not a climate expert. Yes, I have covered natural disasters and climate disasters in the past as a journalist, but I cannot say that I am a climate expert You remember that there were floods in Pakistan in 2010, and I covered those floods. There was a lot of damage and loss in 2010 floods, but this time the loss and damage was 4 times bigger than the previous 2010 flood. And despite the devastation and the tragedy, unfortunately, the Pakistani media was not paying proper attention to this flood. The reason was the political atmosphere in the country. And in June and July, when the rains started, the monsoon started very early this year. So I was feeling that this year it may create some problem. But I was not getting space in my channel, in my newspaper. So in July, I wrote an article in Washington Post. I thought that maybe they will give space to this issue, and they published my article. And I wrote that climate change is becoming a bigger threat to Pakistan than terrorism. So the headline of my column was very alarming, and many people, including some government ministers, they saw me here and there, and they started debating with me, and they said that you are sensationalizing the issue. It is not that important, and this is sensationalism. I said this is not sensationalism, and I hope that I may prove wrong, but let's see what happens. And within weeks, the rains started all over Pakistan, and this time the rains in Pakistan were 3-4 times more than the previous years. And 1/3 of Pakistan was submerged into water. And then I started pleading. Nobody was giving me an assignment. Nobody was suggesting me from my own media organization that you should go and cover the floods. I thought that somebody will ask me that you have the past experience of covering floods, so this is a time that you should go again and cover the floods. But nobody was asking me.
Right.
So I requested my management that please allow me to do at least one show. I am ready to go in the field, and I want to do one show. If you go through the timeline of my shows, you will realize that I do my regular shows from Monday to Thursday. And you will notice that my first show about flood was on Saturday. Why Saturday? Because a slot was available from 7 to 8, not from 8 to 9, which is the prime time. I do show on prime time from 8 to 9. A slot was, sorry.
Please grab a sip of water.
So a slot was available, and I did my first show on Saturday. That show gave some message, and it alarmed other people. And then I was allowed to do shows.
I'm going to sort of interject here just for a second, because I think that's an important point you're making, Hamid, and I want to share it with other journalists. As you said, you've covered crises of many kinds. Pakistan has been witness not just to floods, but to earthquakes as well. It has been witness to terrible terror attacks, which is also something that you must have reported on. How do you, as a reporter, equip yourself around issues of climate when you're literally doing it on the go? The floods are unfolding faster than a journalist can imagine. You don't have the kind of support that you would need in a newsroom, which I think journalists across many parts of the world, especially in South Asia, perhaps struggle with. How do you equip yourself with some kind of, context, climate context, while reporting as a tragedy is unfolding?
Yes, this is a very important question. When my first show about the flood was aired, so my organization allowed me, and I told them that I will go to all the areas which are affected by the flood, and it was almost all over Pakistan. So I started from the northern area, from Swat, and then I went to Charsada, Naushera, then South Punjab, and when I reached Sindh, it was terrible. And when I sent the visuals and reports to my newsroom, they thought we never saw these visuals before that. You are the first person. And you will be surprised to know that I was the first journalist who reached to some affected areas. And the people were telling me that no government, no organization, no police, no navy came here. They never reached there. You are the first person who reached there. And I was using a boat, a private boat. So then my organization stood by me, and then they said, okay, now we are ready to give you whatever you want. And they gave me full support. When they extended me full support, then there was a problem for me that the devastation, the magnitude of the devastation was that so big, it was very difficult for me to cover that. And then I went to Balochistan. There was water everywhere, destruction everywhere. There was human tragedy, and nobody was there to help the people. So as you know that I have covered wars almost in every conflict zone of the world, from Palestine to Iraq, from Kashmir to Bosnia and Chechnya, Syria, everywhere. I never wept, I never cried. But in this flood, in the month of August and September, you see, I cried again and again, because there was so helplessness. People were so helpless. There was the rate of the state was submerged in the water. There was no government. Everybody was underwater. I went to there is a district in Balochistan. It is Sobatpur. Whole district was underwater, and I was moving on the boat, and I reached. I saw a police station. I saw a board of the police station. It was submerged. So the police officials were standing on the rooftop. So I reached there. So I said, "What is this?" They said, "This is a police line, and here is the police station." And everything was underwater. And I said, "Where are the prisoners?" And they never responded. I said, "Where are the prisoners?" They said, "Mr. Mir, actually, they are in the prison." I said, "How can you say? Where is the prison?" They said, "Downstairs, underwater." I said, what are you saying? Why don't you bring the prisoners on the rooftop?" They said, the rules does not allow us. I said, "This is a tragedy. This is a disaster. This is climate disaster." They said, "We know this is a disaster, but we don't know what is climate disaster. But there are some rules, and we cannot go against the rules." So I realized that this climate disaster created lot of administrative and legal issues for the state. And then I pushed them that they will die out of waterborne diseases. So you have to rescue them. And then they contacted some high officials, and those high officials, they were also sitting on the rooftops. And when I reached there on the boat, the police officials, they were asking help from me. They were supposed to help the needy people, but they were asking help from me. What kind of help they wanted me? That I should convey their message that they are in problems. They don't have food. They don't have boats. Please tell the bosses that we need these things. So you see, that was a terrible experience, and especially the sufferings of the women and children. I was not in a position to help them. Sometimes I changed my role. sometimes I was forced to change my role. I was a journalist. I turned into a rescue worker. But then I realized this is not my job. But you see, you are a human being, and sometimes your human instincts force you to start helping the needy people. Then you cannot focus on your professionalism.
You
So
raised a point though, Hamid, about it's a double-edged sword sometimes for journalists who are reporting on a tragedy that is unfolding versus also shining a light on who is responsible for this action. So, while you were talking about the floods, sort of running commentary also of your coverage was critiquing the government where they had indeed failed. I don't know if people caught it in that video that just played out, but there was a lady saying, my husband is hopeless and my government is hopeless. So either I switch up the husband or I switch up the government. Does that make it more tricky for you as a journalist to be reporting on a tragedy, but also to be making very sharp, critical points about government mismanagement? Did you get a free space to do that, or were you being held back? Were you being advised to hold back while making those sharp comments?
Unfortunately, I faced a lot of pressure during my flood coverage, because the main problem was in Sindh and Balochistan. And the governments in Sindh and Balochistan, they were not in a position to provide the immediate relief to most of the victims. So it was understandable for me. But you see, I was in the field, and especially when I reached to the home town of the chief minister of the Sindh province, you see there was 16 to 18 feet water in his constituency, and the water was touching the electricity wires. And when the chief minister saw that program, he was very angry, because most of the people in his constituency, they were complaining that they never received any relief or any help from the government. And then the people were complaining about the dacoits, the thieves. So you see, I faced a lot of problems, and in some of the areas in the South Punjab, the local feudal landlords, they used criminals to terrorize me, and they tried the level best that I should run away. And frankly speaking, on some instances, I ran away because I was not in a position to confront the criminals who were armed with weapons. So I never had any weapons. I had only one cameraman and one producer and one driver, one vehicle. So and some places I was moving in the boats. But I made it possible that wherever the local feudal landlords or the government organizations, they were creating problems for me, and they forced me to run away, and I ran away for the time being. I went back again in 3-4 areas. I went back there again, and I spoke to the local people, and they were very happy to see me, and I reported that. And you see, I realized that it's not only the politics in Pakistan, which is a very sensitive area, and the security agencies and the powerful people in Pakistan, they are very sensitive on political issues. They are very sensitive on the security issues. This time I realized that they are very sensitive on the climate issue, and they are not ready to accept that there is a lot of flood water, there is climate change. And I give you an example. In Kalam area, you must have seen the images of a hotel, the honeymoon hotel, which was collapsed. So I reached there and I investigated that why this hotel was collapsed like a toy. So the hotel was constructed inside the river area. The same hotel was demolished by the flood water in 2010, and the owners gave bribe to the local administration, and they were allowed to rebuild the hotel. inside the river Swat, inside the river Swat. And when I reported that, so the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government was very angry with me. And then I said, and the local people were very wise. They were telling me, and I learned a lot during this flood coverage. I learned a lot about climate issues from the general public. They told me, they said, we tell you why there is this lot of devastation and destruction. I said, tell me. They said, deforestation. Deforestation is the main issue. Then a very old man, he was about 80 years old. He was a school teacher, a retired school teacher. He said, the glaciers on the top are melting very fast. I said, how can you say that? He said, because this year the lakes in different mountain areas, they are blasting. The lakes are blasting because there is a lot of water, and the glaciers are melting very fast. Then I realized, oh, the issue of global warming. What is global warming? Why glaciers are melting very fast? And the deforestation. And then another person, again, he was not a climate expert. He said, why don't you give attention to a issue of the presence of the Pakistani and Indian troops on Siachen Glacier? Don't you think that the presence of two big armies on a glacier is creating problem for the whole area? So then you see, from Kalam and Swat, I got an idea, and I moved other areas, and I tried to learn. It was, you see, not a reporting assignment only. It was a learning assignment. It was a learning process for me. I learned a lot. I learned that what are the big climate issues in Pakistan and South Asia. Global warming, the melting of the glaciers, the deforestation. And then another old man, he said, the rivers are taking revenge from the humans. I said, how? How can, please explain, I cannot understand. He said that the humans tried to grab the land of the river. The humans tried to encroach the rivers. They built housing colonies, they built farmhouses inside, they built hotels inside the rivers, inside the canals. So now they are taking revenge, and they are teaching us a lesson. So we should not fight with the nature.
Let me ask you perhaps a more critical question, Hamid, and I think it sort of turns a light on journalists as well and how we cover our reportage. You know, often what happens in tragedies like this is that there is a huge amount of focus and reporting while the tragedy is underway. As you said, in the Sindh province, things are nowhere near normal. Some of the data that I was looking at, for instance, from UNICEF indicates that many of the children under 5 have been admitted into hospitals as severely malnourished. This is just part of the problem. Of course, they've lost their livestock, they've lost their farmland. Economically, they are devastated. What happens when the brunt of the event is gone? How do you keep a light on what is important? And this goes both for international media and for local media, because there was a period of time when there was so much reportage, even globally, around the Pakistan floods and around the support they needed. But what happens when the worst is over and everyone walks away from that story?
Very good question. And my response is that the worst is not over yet. And I have stopped going in the flood areas due to the political atmosphere in Pakistan. Even when I was forcing my producers and management that I want to go in the flood areas, some of my colleagues followed me, but most of my colleagues never followed me because the flood coverage was not giving a lot of ratings. So this is, you see, I am a working journalist, and I cannot fight with this rating problem. So I did a lot of hard work, and my reporting in the flood areas gave a perspective to the government and the donor agencies that what kind of help they should send to the victims. But you see, even today, when I am talking to you, there I know the areas in Balochistan and Sindh which are still underwater, and you see those areas where the water is gone. Now they are fighting with the diseases and hunger and other problems. And again, the problem is the rating and right now when I am talking to you, Mr. Imran Khan, a very popular politician of Pakistan, he's moving towards Islamabad. He wants fresh elections, and the government is taking cover of the flood situation. The government is saying that, oh, there are two provinces in Pakistan which are badly affected by the floods, and the water is still creating problems in many areas of those two provinces, so we cannot hold elections. But the government which is taking the cover of the flood waters is not providing relief properly to the victims. And Imran Khan, who want fresh elections, is not ready to understand that how an administration in a province or in a district, how can they manage an election when not thousands but millions of people are affected, and millions of them are still homeless. Even today, not thousands but millions of people, they are facing problems in not only in Sindh and Balochistan, but also in South Punjab and in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa areas from Swat to Nowshera and Charsada. And the problem is that the media is not paying proper attention to this issue. They are giving more focus to Imran Khan versus Shehbaz Sharif. This is the main issue. The political drama is the main issue of all the TV channels, all the newspapers. And I think that when this the political drama will be over, then they will realize, because now the weather is changing. Now, right now, I am receiving complaints from Balochistan and Sindh province that the millions of the flood victims who are still living under open sky, now they face a lot of problems because winter is coming. They don't have blankets, they don't have warm clothes, even most of them don't have tents, and they are also facing mosquitoes and snakes. So in few days, not weeks, in few days the weather will change, and unfortunately, God forbid, if they start dying, it will become a big scandal. Then maybe it will become a big story for the media, and then they will go there to cover the dead bodies.
I want to change the sort of the direction of our conversation for a bit, Hamid Saab, because I think some of your experiences are also extremely important for journalists who are functioning in not ideal circumstances around the world. A few weeks back, we had a guest on this same seminar whose name is John Alan Namu. And it's interesting that at one point in time, you were both tweeting about the same issue, which was the very, very unfortunate death of Arshad Sharif in Kenya, who was there in exile. You yourself, Hamid Saab, had faced instances where your life was under threat. You faced assassination attempts. I want for you to share your experiences as a journalist in Pakistan, where it's a little different, where for many decades now, journalism has functioned not only under the pushback from government, but also the very real presence of a military establishment and how much control it has over what it would like or not like to see reported.
You see, Pakistan is a security state. And in this region, especially in South Asia, there are many countries in South Asia which are called democracies, but they are not democracies. So I must say that Pakistan is a democracy, but it's not a democracy. Yes, there is an elected parliament in Pakistan, but this elected parliament is powerless. Yes, there is judiciary in Pakistan, but the judiciary is not independent. And yes, there is media in Pakistan, and the media is fighting for its independence. One may differ with the views of Arshad Sharif, and he was a very good friend of mine. I was working in Geo, he was working in ARY. We were in the opposite news channels, but we were very close to each other. And I remember that when I survived an assassination attempt in 2014, and a three-member inquiry commission was established, headed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And that inquiry commission never released its report. So Arshad Sharif filed a petition in Islamabad High Court, and he pleaded that the inquiry commission about the a murder attempt on Hamid Mir must release its report. And for many not months but 3-4 years, for 3-4 years, Arshad Sharif was moving from one court to another court. He was keep filing petitions, but nobody was ready to release the report. And last year, I remember I asked him, why are you running after this report? He said, at least there should be one report which must see the light of the day, because most of the inquiry reports are not released. So I said, okay, thank you very much. But now you see, now you are talking to me about Arshad Sharif. Just few hours ago, this morning, his mother wrote a letter to the Chief Justice of Pakistan that she is not satisfied with the inquiry commission announced by the government of Pakistan, headed by a retired judge of the High Court. And she pleaded that the Chief Justice of Pakistan should establish a commission headed by a serving judge of the Supreme Court. So I don't know the Chief Justice of Pakistan will listen to the mother of Arshad Sharif or not. But you see, this is the Arshad Sharif. This is not the first time that Arshad Sharif is assassinated. Many Arshad Sharifs were assassinated in Pakistan in the past. And if we will not be able to investigate the murder of this Arshad Sharif, I fear that more Arshad Sharifs will be assassinated. So Pakistan is included in the 10 countries which are very dangerous for the media. Journalism is a very dangerous profession in Pakistan. And I think that the most important question in this case is, we are not bothered about the shooters who killed Arshad Sharif in Kenya. We are more concerned about the circumstances in which Arshad Sharif was forced to leave Pakistan. When he left Pakistan, he was facing 17 different cases. You can disagree with his opinion, you can disagree with his position. But you see, last year, I was facing the same position. I was facing treason charges, sedition cases. I was hearing from here to there. This year, Arshad Sharif was facing this case. So you see, the problem is that why, this is the main question, why media is not free in Pakistan? Because there is a fake democracy in Pakistan. The parliament is powerless and judiciary is not independent.